The biocombat zone stretched before her team of 50-square-mile wilderness, where nature and nightmare converged. Ancient Douglas firs towered overhead, their branches creating a canopy so thick that noon felt like twilight. "Remember, this isn't a simulation," barked Sergeant Torres, his weathered face etched with concern. "The Omega Stalker hasn't been fed in 3 days. It's hunting for real." Elena's teammates Marcus, a bull of a man from Texas, Priya, whose sniper skills were legendary, and Jake, barely 18 and trying to prove himself, nodded grimly. They'd trained for this moment for 2 years, but nothing could prepare them for facing a bioengineered apex predator in its natural habitat. Dr. Sarah Chen watched from the observation bunker, her fingers dancing across holographic displays. As the project's lead geneticist, she'd helped create the Omega Stalker, a creature that combined the stealth of a panther, the strength of a grizzly, and the intelligence of a human hunter. No cadet had ever survived direct contact. This was a test of evasion, not confrontation. Movement detected. Grid 77. Came the voice through Elena's earpiece. The team moved like ghosts through the underbrush, following Protocol 7. Avoid, evade, survive. But the forest had its own plans. The attack came from above, a shadow detaching from the canopy with impossible silence. Marcus screamed as claws raked across his back, sending him tumbling down a rocky slope. Priya's rifle cracked twice before something struck her head. Jake simply vanished, his calm going dead between one heartbeat and the next. Elena found herself sliding down a muddy embankment, her leg twisted at an unnatural angle. Warm blood seeping through her torn fatigues, the ravine walls rose like prison bars around her. No weapons, no backup, no hope. Above her, something moved through the trees, patient, methodical, inevitable. In the bunker, alarms screamed. General Harrison, a man who'd fought in 3 wars, watched the feeds with growing horror. "Get a recovery team in there now, Doctor." Shen's eyes remained fixed on Elena's biometrics. The cadet's heart rate was elevated but steady. Her blood pressure showed signs of something unusual, something that made Chen's breath catch in her throat. "Sir, the Omega Stalker has located the remaining cadet," reported Lieutenant Foster, monitoring the creature's tracking implant. "Time to contact, 30 seconds. Elena pressed her back against the cold stone, feeling her pulse thunder in her ears. The scent of pine and earth mixed with her own blood. Somewhere above, death approached on silent pause, and she was too wounded to run. The Omega Stalker descended into the ravine like liquid shadow, its enhanced muscles rippling beneath midnight black fur. Elena could see why no cadet had ever survived. The creature was perfect death incarnate, standing 7 feet at the shoulder, with eyes that gleamed with unnatural intelligence. Its breathing was controlled, calculated, the sound of a predator that had never known fear. Elena clutched a sharp rock, knowing it was pathetic against such a monster. Her broken leg screamed in protest as she tried to shift position. Blood from her head wound ran down her face, the metallic taste sharp on her lips. The predator paused at the ravine's edge, nostrils flaring, its massive head tilted, processing. Sense that evolution had taught it to interpret. Pine sap, wet earth, human fear, human blood. And then something else. In the observation bunker, Dr. Chen leaned forward, her face inches from the monitor. "What's it doing?" The Omega Stalker had frozen mid-stride. Its ears swiveled forward, then back. A low whine escaped its throat, not the sound of a hunter, but of something confused, almost frightened. General Harrison frowned. "Is there a malfunction in its behavioral programming?" "No, sir," Lieutenant Foster reported, checking his instruments. "All systems nominal. Brain activity is off the charts, but there's no indication of system failure." Elena watched in amazement as the apex predator took a step backward. Its lips pulled back, revealing teeth like ivory daggers, but the snarl seemed defensive rather than aggressive. The creature's powerful haunches bunched, muscles coiled like springs. Then it did something that defied all logic. The Omega Stalker threw itself sideways against the ravine wall with tremendous force. Rock chips exploded outward as its body struck stone. It rolled, thrashed, then lay perfectly still, a performance of death. So convincing that Elena's breath caught in her throat. Did it just General Harrison couldn't finish the sentence. Dr. Chen's fingers flew across her keyboard, pulling up genetic markers, blood chemistry analysis, everything she could access about Elena Vasquez. What she found made her blood run cold. The creature lay motionless for a full minute while Elena remained frozen against the opposite wall. Then, moving with the same fluid grace, but now carrying an urgency that bordered on panic, it rose and disappeared up the ravine wall. Within seconds, it had vanished into the forest depths. Elena was alone with her pain and a mystery that would change everything. Recovery team. Movin' now, General Harrison barked. I want that cadet extracted and debriefed immediately. But Dr. Chen was already running toward the medical bay. Elena's genetic profile burning in her mind. She'd seen those markers before. In classified files that weren't supposed to exist. Files that spoke of experiments conducted 20 years ago, of children injected with synthetic compounds, of a project called Apex Insurance. Elena Vasquez wasn't just a cadet. She was a living weapon designed to counter the very monsters they'd created. And somehow, the Omega Stalker had recognized her for what she truly was. The Predator hadn't fled from a wounded human girl. It had retreated from something higher. In the food chain, something that carried the genetic signature of its creator's ultimate contingency plan. Asterisk. The medical bay hummed with activity as Elena lay on the examination table, her leg immobilized in a biafoam cast. Pain medication dulled the sharp edges of her injuries, but couldn't touch the confusion that clouded her mind. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the Omega Stalker's expression in that moment before it fled, not the cold calculation of a predator, but something almost human. Fear. Dr. Chen entered quietly, her tablet displaying results that confirmed her worst suspicions. Elena's blood work showed trace amounts of synthetic compounds that shouldn't exist in nature. Genetic markers that had been artificially enhanced, neural pathways that had been subtly rewired. The girl was a hybrid, part human, part something else entirely. How are you feeling, Elena? Dr. Chen asked, pulling up a chair. Like I got hit by a truck full of claws, Elena replied, managing a weak smile. But I'm alive, which is more than anyone expected. Yes, about that. Dr. Chen leaned forward. What do you remember about your childhood? Any unusual medical treatments, special programs, anything that seemed out of the ordinary? Elena frowned. My parents died when I was 6. Car accident. I was raised by my Aunt Maria in Phoenix. Why? Your medical records show a gap between ages 6 and 8. No documentation of schooling, no pediatrician visits, nothing. Dr. Chen's voice was gentle but insistent. Elena, I need you to think. Those 2 years, do you remember anything? Fragments came back like puzzle pieces. White rooms, the smell of antiseptic, a woman in a lab coat who spoke in soothing tones while administering injections. Building your immune system, dear, making you strong. Dreams of running through forests, of hunting and being hunted, of understanding the language of predators. The Helix program, Elena whispered, the name surfacing from buried memories. Dr. Chen's face went pale. You remember? Before Elena could respond, alarms began blaring throughout the facility. General Harrison's voice crackled over the intercom. All personnel to stations. The Omega Stalker has returned to the perimeter. It's not hunting. It appears to be waiting. Through the medical bay's reinforced window, Elena could see the creature in the distance, sitting motionless at the forest's edge like a faithful dog. Its massive head was turned toward the facility, yellow eyes fixed on the building where she lay. It's waiting for me, Elena said with sudden certainty. Dr. Chen nodded grimly. The Helix program created you to be their insurance policy. If the bioengineered creatures ever became uncontrollable, you were designed to manage them. Your blood carries synthetic pheromones that trigger submission responses in predator species. So I'm not human. You're more than human. And that's exactly why you're in danger. Dr. Chen glanced toward the door. General Harrison doesn't see you as an asset anymore. He sees you as a threat. If you can control one apex predator, what's to stop you from controlling an entire army of them? As if summoned by her words, the sound of approaching boots echoed in the corridor. Military police were coming. and Elena knew with predatory instinct that they weren't here for her protection. The Omega stalker raised its massive head and howled a sound that carried across the mountains, like a declaration of war. Asterisk. The military police burst through the medical bay doors, just as Elena rolled off the examination table, her enhanced reflexes overriding the pain in her broken leg. Dr. Chen stepped between Elena and the armed soldiers, her hands raised but her voice steady. "Stand down. She's injured and unarmed. Dr. Chen, step away from the asset," commanded Captain Rodriguez, his weapon trained on Elena. "By order of General Harrison, Cadet Vasquez is to be transferred to Level 7 containment for indefinite study." Elena's blood ran cold. Level 7 was where they kept the failed experiments, the creatures too dangerous to release, but too valuable to destroy. She'd heard whispers about the things that lived in those underground cells, subjects that had been human once. "I won't go in a cage," Elena said, her voice carrying an authority that surprised everyone, including herself. The Omega stalker's howl echoed again, closer this time. Through the window, Elena could see it pacing at the facility's outer fence, its massive form moving with increasing agitation. The creature's yellow eyes remained fixed on the medical bay, and Elena felt a strange connection. Predator recognizing predator, apex acknowledging apex. "The subject will comply or be sedated," Captain Rodriguez stated, raising his tranquilizer rifle. That's when the lights went out. Emergency power kicked in seconds later, bathing everything in red light, but those few moments of darkness were enough. Elena heard the distinctive whine of bending metal, the crash of breaking glass, and a roar that made the building tremble. The Omega stalker had breached the perimeter. "All units, converge on the medical bay." General Harrison's voice crackled over the comm system. "The asset is not to leave this facility." Dr. Chen grabbed Elena's arm. "There's a maintenance tunnel behind the supply closet. It leads to the motor pool. Come with me," Elena urged, but the older woman shook her head. "Someone needs to destroy the Helix files. They can't be allowed to create more like you." Dr. Chen pressed a keycard into Elena's hand. "Level 7. Sublevel C release. The others, they deserve freedom too." Elena wanted to argue, but the sound of approaching soldiers left no time. She squeezed through the maintenance hatch just as the Omega stalker crashed through the medical bay's main entrance, scattering military police like bowling pins. The creature's massive head turned toward Elena's hiding spot, their eyes meeting for a brief moment. In that gaze, she saw not a monster, but a kindred spirit, another victim of human ambition, another life twisted by scientific hubris. The Omega stalker nodded once, then turned to face the soldiers. It didn't attack with the savage efficiency Elena had witnessed in the forest. Instead, it moved with careful precision, using its bulk to block corridors, herding the military personnel away from Elena's escape route. Elena crawled through the ventilation system, her broken leg screaming with each movement. Behind her, she could hear the chaos of her unlikely ally creating a diversion. The creature was protecting her, just as she somehow knew she would protect it. When she finally emerged in the motor pool, Elena realized she faced a choice that would define her future. She could steal a vehicle and flee, leaving behind the other victims of the Helix program. Or she could descend into Level 7 and face whatever horrors waited there. The Omega stalker's roar echoed through the facility, a sound of defiance that decided her course. She was apex predator now, and apex predators protected their own. Elena limped toward the elevator that would take her to the depths of human cruelty. Dr. Chen's keycard clutched in her hand like a weapon. Level 7 stretched before Elena like a nightmare made concrete, a labyrinth of reinforced cells and observation chambers carved deep into the mountain. The air tasted of fear and antiseptic, carrying the whispers of subjects who had been human once but were something else now. Elena moved through the corridors on her broken leg, Dr. Chen's keycard opening doors that were never meant to be opened. In the first cell, she found Marcus, or what had been Marcus. The transformation was almost complete, his body elongated and covered in chitinous plates. His eyes still human, but filled with desperate intelligence. "Elena." His voice was a whisper of grinding bone. "They said you were dead." "Not yet," she replied, hitting the release mechanism. but we will be if we don't move fast. She freed them all the failed experiments, the subjects who had volunteered for enhancement programs, the children who had been taken from their families like she had. Some were barely recognizable as human anymore. Others, like Priya, showed subtle changes that spoke of genetic tampering gone wrong. "How many of us are there?" Priya asked, her movements unnaturally fluid, predatory. "Enough," Elena replied, feeling the truth of it in her bones. They were apex predators now, each one designed to counter the bioweapons humanity had unleashed upon itself. They were the insurance policy, the failsafe, the final solution to mankind's hubris. Above them, explosions rocked the facility. The Omega Stalker had not come alone. Elena could sense them now, dozens of creatures drawn by the pheromones her blood released. Predators who recognized her authority and accepted her leadership. General Harrison's voice crackled over the facilities. "Speakers, all units, fall back to the armory. Implement Protocol 0 total facility sterilization in T-10 minutes." Elena smiled grimly. They intended to bury their mistakes, along with everyone in the mountain, but they had underestimated what they had created. "Can you feel them?" she asked her fellow apex predators. "Our pack, our family." They could. Each freed subject nodded, their enhanced senses picking up the approach of their bioengineered allies. The facility shuddered as creatures that had never been meant to exist took their revenge on their creators. Elena led her pack toward the surface, her broken leg no longer slowing her down. The genetic enhancements were accelerating her healing, reshaping her body into something more efficient, more deadly. She was becoming what she was always meant to be. They emerged into chaos. Military vehicles burned in the motor pool while creatures that defied classification stalked between the flames. The Omega Stalker waited at the facility's entrance, its massive head bowed in submission as Elena approached. She placed her hand on its scarred muzzle, feeling the connection that transcended species, predator to predator, apex to apex. "We're free now," she told it, her voice carrying to every enhanced ear in the area. "All of us." The explosion came exactly on schedule, consuming the underground levels in a ball of superheated gas. But Elena and her pack were already moving into the forest, leaving behind the world of cages and experiments. Behind them, the Cascade Mountains burned with the light of humanity's greatest mistake. Ahead lay wilderness, freedom, and the promise of a new order where predators would no longer be slaves to those who feared them. Elena Vasquez, no longer fully human, but something far more dangerous, led her pack into the darkness between the trees. They were the apex predators now, and the world would learn what that truly meant. Asterisk.